Lesson 113, Absolute Value Equations. Let's do a quick review of absolute value. If you have been in the program, you'll remember from Module 1 that absolute value is distance from 0, therefore it's always positive. The absolute value of 7 is 7, and the absolute value of negative 7 is also 7. The absolute value of 32 is 32, and the absolute value of negative 32 is also 32. We can use this to solve equations with the absolute value of a variable. If I have the absolute value of a variable by itself, since the absolute value of 5 is 5 and the absolute value of negative 5 is 5, I don't know which one of these is actually x. Is it 5 or is it negative 5? So it could be either one. Therefore, the absolute value of x equals 5 has two solutions, x equals 5 or negative 5. If we have absolute value of a variable plus or minus another number, we first want to isolate the absolute value of x just as if it was an x by itself. So I will subtract 7 from both sides, and that will give me the absolute value of x is equal to 12. Then I'll solve for both values of x. If the absolute value of x is equal to 12, then x is 12 or negative 12. Here are some more examples with x by itself in the absolute value bars. Here I have 3 times the absolute value of x equals 36. In order to isolate the absolute value of x, I will divide both sides by 3, which will give me that the absolute value of x is equal to 12. So x will be equal to 12 or negative 12. I can have two-step equation. I'll add 10 to both sides first, which will give me 4 times the absolute value of x is equal to 32. I will then divide both sides by 4, which will give me that the absolute value of x is equal to 8. So therefore x will be equal to 8 or negative 8. This example will work out similarly. I'll subtract both sides by 19. And I'll get 3 times the absolute value of x is equal to negative 15. If I divide by 3, I get the absolute value of x is equal to negative 5. But absolute value cannot be negative. Absolute value can only be positive, so there are no solutions. You'll notice I did make the point of dividing by 3 before I determined that there were no solutions. You want to get the absolute value completely by itself, and here's why. I might add 3 to both sides, and I'll get negative 6. And if you're not careful, you might go, oh, negative, it can't be negative, and then you'll say no solutions. But in reality, if I divide by negative 2, I get the absolute value of x is equal to 3. So x is equal to 3 or negative 3. Before you assume there are no solutions, make sure you completely isolate the absolute value. We have a similar situation. We have the absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to 5, and we know that 5, the absolute value of 5 is 5, and the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. So that means x plus 3 can either be 5 or negative 5 and give us a correct answer. So that means we have to set x plus 3 equal to both 5 and negative 5. We have to split the single equation into 2 equations to solve. So here's how we'll work through that. First, we isolate the absolute value if necessary. In this case, it's already by itself, but perhaps it could have something being multiplied or added or subtracted to it. Then we split the equation and set equal to both positive and negative values. So as we said, it can be 5 or negative 5. So I say x plus 3 equals 5 or x plus 3 equals negative 5. Then I solve for x. I subtract 3 and I get x equals 2. Or if I subtract 3, I get x equals negative 8. So I get that x is equal to 2 or negative 8. Let's try a couple. We'll add 7 to both sides here in order to isolate the absolute value. So I have the absolute value of 2x plus 3 is equal to 21. I will split this equation into two. 2x plus 3 equals 21, and 2x plus 3 equals negative 21. And I'll write the word or between them. I will solve each equation individually. So I subtract 3 and I get 2x equals 18. I divide by 2 and I get that x equals 9. Or I subtract 3 and I get that 2x is equal to negative 24. I divide by 2 and then I get x is equal to negative 12. So x is equal to 9 or negative 12. If we have multiplication out front, we divide both sides first in order to isolate the absolute value. So I have the absolute value of 4x minus 5 equals 4. I will split that. 4x minus 5 equals 4, and 4x minus 5 is equal to negative 4. Add 5. 4x is equal to 9. Divide by 4. X is equal to 9/4. Add 5. 4x is equal to 1. Divide by 4. X is equal to 1/4. So my answer will be x is equal to 9/4 or 1/4. Here I'll have two things to do in order to isolate the absolute value. I'll subtract 10 from both sides and get 2 times the absolute value of x minus 6 is equal to 22. Then I'll divide by 2, and I will get the absolute value of x minus 6 is equal to 11. And then I will split x minus 6 equals 11 or x minus 6 equals negative 11. Add 6. X equals 17 or add 6. X equals 5. Why don't you try D on your own? Pause the video, try to work the problem, and then when you've completed it, restart the video and compare your answer. Did you get x equals negative 1 or x equals negative 3? If you did, great job. If not, look through the steps here and try to determine where you made your mistake.